This episode of the Unstoppable Recording Machine podcast is brought to you by Solid State Logic. SSL is a manufacturer of high-end mixing consoles and recording studio software. For over 49 years, SSL's products have been at the heart of thousands of the most respected, timeless recordings. Solid State Logic. Thank you for listening. And now your host, Heir Apparent.
All right, welcome to the URM podcast, another episode of Mixcritmonday. I'm A.L. Levy, and with me is co-host John Douglas. Hello, Dr. Douglas.
Hi, I'm back again.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks.
I have a question. Do you think that people who are working on these tracks and are total beginners realize how spoiled they are?
That's a good
I mean this
question.
in the nicest possible way, but holy shit.
I think, I always ask people on the one-on-ones, like, just kind of what's been your experience with this, and just to kind of get a feel of, what their focus has been on. So I'm going to keep asking that about nobody sent me an Opeth mix crit. This is the first batch of mixes of the Opeth month that I've heard. So we'll see how it goes. I hope people have a kind of respect for that, because I know for you and me especially, it's like this was a record that really made an impact when it came out and has kind of stuck with us over the years.
Yeah.
And so it's really like almost the pinnacle of kind of nail the mixing to this point in some sense.
Absolutely. And so I'm thinking about, when people sign up this month, they're getting this Opeth track, and then they have the option of getting one of the Meshuggah sessions for like a discount. And so it's like, imagine if you were just starting out and like one of the first things you ever mixed was Opeth and then Meshuggah. It's like,
Imagine if
part of me feels like that's morally wrong, but
imagine if like in 2003 people had this, if like how that would have changed the history of metalcore through the 2000s. If people had already had some of the secrets in the, if some of the cats were out of the bag, so to speak. I don't know. That just kind of popped into my head.
I think the world would look completely different for us.
I think so.
And I mean, the world already does look completely different for audio production now than it did even 5 years ago. Like even 5 years ago when me and you were making records together, like things were completely different.
Yeah.
And obviously they're going to be way different 5 years from now. So if it had started that much early, I can only imagine how radically more, I guess, advanced it would be at this point. Because I definitely do think that things are in many ways a lot more advanced now.
And we're definitely like, I think the whole thing of everybody knows how to record at a decent level, that kind of mentality is actually becoming a reality. And you can see it. I was reflecting on that either today or yesterday, that kind of gold, that kind of standard that everybody has been thinking about for a while is like, what's going to happen when everybody can record? It's like, that's sort of becoming a reality. Like everybody can record and at pretty damn good quality. So yeah, it's a whole new world.
Well, it's easier than ever to be passable or mediocre. I don't want to say mediocre in a derogatory way, but like, obviously it's hard. It will always be hard to be great, but it's easier than ever to be decent. And I think that does change things for a lot of people. But at the same time, with that many more people trying, there's that many more opportunities for collaboration, and it also makes the people who truly rule stand out that much more. Plus, I think that it's only going to keep snowballing in quality. Like it's only up from here. Like for instance, like remember what guitar players used to be like when I'm a little older than you, so I might remember this a little more, but guitar players used to fucking suck when I learned how to play guitar. They are way better now. Even guitar players with their shitty modern vibrato and all that are way better than people who played guitar when I was learning, or like in the early 2000s when I was starting to record. And the idea of playing to a click track for drummers, it was like really foreign to them, and they were afraid of it. It was like you were suggesting something insane to them.
Yeah.
Like how, and now drummers that don't play to a click. I mean, sure, it might be an artistic choice not to use it sometimes, but how often do you find drummers, at least in our genres, who don't play to a click?
Yeah, it's
That's
like
almost unheard of.
Yeah, you get a Gojira record and maybe a Converge record, and that's about it.
But they could play to a click.
Right,
if you told
exactly.
them
That's
to.
the point. It's the guys who really their sound depends on their feel in a good way, or it doesn't depend on it, but it adds that extra 15-20% of just raw aggression and emotion.
Absolutely. I'm thinking again about the guitar thing. So for a while, I thought it was a regression in guitar playing when the technical bar went up, because I felt like suddenly everybody could sweep, whereas before only 2% of people could sweep. But some of the things that got left behind were playing bends in tune and vibrato that wasn't like really hammy and stuff. Like good, tasteful vibrato didn't seem to speed along evolution wise like sweeping or something did, or down picking.
Right.
But I mean, now I think we're at a point where that stuff has caught up, and just basic level guitar players are way better. And
Oh, yeah.
same with recording.
I mean, you look at a band like Polyphia, and those guys are super young, and they are,
Yes.
that whole style of kind of like integrating fusion into some of the more metal influences has really caught on with a younger crowd. Like I went to the Polyphia and Chan show in Atlanta, and the Masquerade was packed. It was ridiculous, and
That's beautiful.
the guy to girl ratio was not that absurd, which blew my mind. It's like nerdy, instrumental, wanky music. I mean that in the best possible way. But yeah, it's great to see bands like that kind of branching out and being able to find influences that appeal to a wider audience and really stepping up their game.
Yeah, I think that that's a beautiful thing, and we're entering a time period where music doesn't seem like so dreadful like it did for a little while. There was a little while there where I really was starting to question what the hell was going on. That time period when Guitar Pro started to take over.
Yeah.
And players stopped playing, kind of. It's weird because it coincided with this technical expansion in ability. Like it was a really weird time period where people could play less well but better at the same time. Like, doesn't make sense, but if you were there, you would know what I meant.
Yeah.
What I mean by that. Like they could play faster, but they sucked. It just hadn't like caught up, I guess.
And there's
but-
still a lot of not so awesome stuff out there, but I feel like we've kind of crossed a line to where you go on YouTube and find somebody playing a guitar cover or doing whatever their instrumental shred thing. It's probably going to be pretty good. If it's got like a bunch of views and like the stuff that people are watching is actually pretty well put together, and I think that just kind of immediately raises the bar for a lot of young musicians who see that and want to emulate it. It's no longer join a pop punk band and play power chords. It's, learn all these shreddy scales and really master your instrument.
I love it. And then there's two other things that I've noticed are really helping things. One, and I swore I would never talk about this on the podcast just because I feel like everyone that tries to sound smart about the music industry talks about this shit. But like the fact that streaming royalties are now a thing,
right,
and artists are actually getting paid a lot better just recently, is going to raise the quality of music because there's a reward again. I think that for a little while, a lot of people who were very talented were jumping ship, industry wide, not just on the musician side, like business people too, jumping ship. Like one of the best managers I had ever encountered, like jumped ship and went to MMA, for instance, like 10 years ago, because he didn't see the reward in it anymore. He wanted to get paid for his talents. And now that there's revenue being generated again, you're going to see talent coming back that had previously jumped ship. That, and also I think that a lot of producers, mixers are finally agreeing that plugins and digital technology has come around the corner.
Yeah.
And we've entered the age where it doesn't matter what you use. Whereas even 5 years ago, there was a big difference. I've been on all these Nail the Mix sessions now where we are actively trying to find if it really is better to go either which way. And like a perfect example is the Forrester Savell session where he did the whole Carnival mix on the SSL and outboard, and then we had time to just start shooting things out. So we shot out all this beautiful gear against the UAD versions, and man, sometimes the UAD versions were better, but all in all, it was not any different.
Yeah.
And so it's a magical time period to where the technology has caught up.
Right.
I think.
I was going back and watching the Taylor Larson, Jason Richardson Nail the Mix, and looking at the comparison between the amp sim and the real amps that they painstakingly mic'd up and mixed and recorded, and they're comparable, if not identical or slightly even better on the modeling side. So that I think that speaks volumes. It's like that guitar tone used to be like the thing. It's like, don't ever touch a guitar tone with a digital EQ. You'll just immediately ruin it. And
that was kind of true.
Yeah, and it was true to an extent. And now with I don't even know what they do to improve the technology of these things, but with oversampling and all the other things that they've started to incorporate, it really does make a difference. It's
been long enough. That's the thing. Time really does fly by, right? And so I feel like the early 2000s were, it was just like close my eyes and then they're gone and here we are. But it's been a while.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's been 20 years or something since I first started hearing about these weird things called pods.
Right.
So like it's about time this shit sounded good,
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of sounding good, why don't we do some Mixcrit Monday?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So the first one, by the way, if you guys did not read the title of this episode, we are going to be critting submissions of Heir Apparent by Opeth by some Nail the Mix subscribers. I picked them randomly out of our Mixcrit group, the Roctagon. These guys don't know that they're going to get critted, and best of luck to everyone. So, first one is from Chris Uber. I think Chris probably plays guitar, because this sounds super guitar heavy. It sounds like it was mixed by a guitarist. The rhythm guitars are dominating everything. But, besides that, I'll just read off my notes and we can talk about it. I think there's too much low end in the kick. It just gets lost. The snare is too sample heavy. It sounds like a sneeze. Dynamics are not well worked out in the transitions, meaning I don't mean dynamic processing. I mean the relative volumes of the heavy to soft parts, which is a big part of Opeth's sound. You got to get that stuff right. It does get softer when the drums drop out, like when it's just like acoustics and flutes. But when it goes to the softer parts that feature drums, the drums are rocking way too hard. It's like the drums are overdone on the soft parts and not done enough on the heavy parts. Like you've got some opposite action happening as to what it should be. Also, ghost notes are getting lost, which is just heresy on an Opeth track. Hearing a disconnection between the rhythm, guitar, bass, and kick drum, especially on the groovy parts, and the vocals are just there. So that's what I had to say.
I agree with a lot of that. I was going to say, the sub of the kick is kind of out of control, especially on the double bass parts, and there's a lot of double bass on this track.
Yes.
I did notice that he basically matched the level of the commercial mix dead on. So, that's not like I can't give you extra points for that, but it shows that you have control over your master chain. It doesn't sound horrible in that respect. I can quickly just compare between yours and the commercial mix, which is what I would do if I was mixing this. So, I think that's a good approach to take. And overall, I feel like some of the overall big picture mix, like the sound is more or less there, and I feel like you kind of took the song and put your own spin on it, and I don't totally agree with some of the spin that you put on it, but as far as like objective stuff that I was hearing, one thing I was noticing is that vocal effects track, and I think this might be across all three mixes, if not the first two that we're going to listen to. There's something going on with the phase between the main vocal track and that panny vocal track, or that secondary stereo vocal track. And I think you can really hear it if you roll off kind of the low end during, let's see, here's a vocal part. Especially on the S's, like so many years. Where is it? Versus, and here's the original. It feels like there's something phasey going on in the high end there between those two tracks, and I think it's creating a little extra sibilance in the vocals. So
I think you're right. There was something I didn't even catch what it was that was kind of painful, but there you go.
Yeah, and I noticed that when I pulled up the tracks, and I'm not sure exactly what Jens's intention or how he processed it, but since I'm hearing that phasing mostly in the high end, you might try rolling off some of the highs and see if that makes it blend in better.
Yeah, I'd be curious about something you just said a little earlier about the low end being out of control. Do you mind playing us an A-B of the low end and the double bass parts between the original and Chris's mix?
Sure. Yeah, let's do that. So let's just roll off down to like 250 or so. I'll put on a 24 dB roll off. And if you're watching the video version and looking at the analyzer, you can just see right off the bat that all this stuff below like 70 hertz is just a few dB too loud compared to the original. If you roll off even further, you could probably even hear really just the bass and the kick. So Here's Chris's mix. And then the original. Yeah, it's interesting. There's obviously a lot more sub, and we can kind of compensate for that by just rolling some of that off. Let's try it like 35 hertz or so. But you start to hear more of the balance differences within that low end. So it's like on Chris's mix, I'm hearing a lot of the bass guitar and just the low end rumble of the kick, whereas I'm not really hearing the punch so much of the kick. And I think in general on this record, I noticed that there's maybe compared to some of the other Nailed It mixes that we've had recently, the kick doesn't slam quite as much. It's just not that kind of a record, especially on the double kick. It's not going to be that typewriter-y type of sound, and it's more of like standing in the room with a drum set and he's playing double bass. You just kind of get a constant wash of that low end. So that's more of like a taste decision for this type of mix. But I definitely think if you kind of
the wrong decision.
Yeah, just balance the roll off some of the low end of that kick and balance the bass guitar and kick in that sub 200 area a little bit better, and you'll be in better shape. The other thing I wanted to mention is just like you said, the guitars are kind of taking over, and especially I found around like 500 hertz and 1.2. So I think if we go look around that area. So this is around 500 versus the original. There's a few dB of a difference there. I think if you suck some of this out, you'd be better off. Yeah, it gives it a little bit more crispy vibe. And then the other place I was looking at is 1.2. It's kind of a nasty something there. So just three changes. I've got a high passing at 37 hertz. I'm cutting a little bit at 475 and cutting a little bit at 1300. So here's before. After. So yeah, I feel like that cleans up some of the mids a little bit. Jens mentioned that he felt like his original mix had too much mids, and this has too much mids compared to that. So I would think about controlling that 500 area especially.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one's from Ethan Lehman. And let me just say, first I thought this was in mono because the rhythms aren't panned. But then I heard the toms go across, and I realized it's not in mono, but the guitars aren't panned. And so it's already at a significant disadvantage from the get-go.
Yeah, when I played the intro, I was like, well, that's kind of an interesting decision to do it backwards and have the lead guitars panned hard left, hard right, and have or not even, I don't know if they were hard left, hard right, but the lead guitars are kind of out to the side a little bit and the rhythms were in the middle. And I was like, that's probably not what you want to do. At least if you're comparing it to the original, it's like, I could see maybe for creative effect if you try to do something like that, but not for the whole song.
No,
it's crazy,
not.
Especially if you just like trying to, if you just kind of ignore that and try and what I did was I ran a match EQ on his mix to the original just to kind of get it a little closer to the ballpark and just kind of have a starting point here. So I'm just going to do that real quick. Okay, so now that we've got, let me just A-B that against, or volume match first, and then we'll A-B it against the original. So obviously guitars are still in the middle, not much I can do about that, but flipping back and forth now, let's go to the vocal part. Like you can at least, so if I put the original mix in mono, if I put both of the mixes in mono, let's try that. Now they're kind of comparable. So it's like, what I thought was funny is that you can get a long way with frequency balance, but even with that frequency balance adjusted to where the relative highs, lows, mids kind of match the original mix, and you can. It makes it a little less disorienting to listen to, but you could still just be like, well, it's never even matching the volumes, it's never going to sound as loud as the original because the guitars are panned in the middle. I feel like that's half the punch of the song,
I mean, if you get all the frequency balance right and then just don't pan the rhythm guitars, like, why do all that work? Just... what I'm saying is like let's do all that work just to shoot yourself in the foot, basically. All right, here's another thing I noticed. So this song has a ton of extra instrumentation and arrangement stuff. And those other instruments just pop right the fuck in. Nothing gradual about them, nothing smooth. It's just like, boom, suddenly there's a part. And I'm not saying that everything needs to have this like super long fade in or anything, but you can hear where the actual file starts. It's overdone. And I think that there's a lot of weird compression on all this. Then that's why we're hearing it that way. Another thing I noticed is, like, for instance, the piano. The piano is louder than the heavy part. So that right there is like your key indicator that someone has gone nuts with compression limiting. Like, the piano should not be louder than the heavy parts. But not only that, it's so compressed, and I'm hearing vibrations from the piano. Like, but I don't know if it's a real piano or not, but maybe it is. Maybe I'm hearing the piano vibrate and strings inside the piano vibrate. And the vibrations are so loud compared to the actual notes that I feel like I'm hearing wrong notes in there, like minor seconds. And it sounds like he is making plinky piano mistakes. And I know there aren't wrong notes in there, and there's no mistakes in there. So the level of dynamics processing is actually making it sound like it was played worse than it was, which is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I think this song, if any song on Nail the Mix is worthy of doing just a faders up mix, and just use your pan and your faders and as minimal kind of high pass, low pass, notch out some stuff that sounds offensive, but that's how I was approaching it, and I got a long way with just a very minimal setup. I didn't import my drum settings. I didn't import any of my usual stuff. Just put a little bit of SSL compression on the bus and try and mix into it and see how far you can get. And being it with the loudness is matched, it's pretty amazing. These tracks are really well done. You don't really need to do much of anything. And that was kind of my worry going into this, is that people were just going to kind of throw the tracks into their template and
roll.
And that's it's really not set up for that. It's like if these were raw straight off the kit, maybe, but they're treated very well and very carefully, and they're pretty much mix ready to where you could just pull this up on an analog console and tweak a few things and do some automation and you'd be there. So, yeah, I mean, you I think you covered most of it, but yeah, there's definitely like a big low end build up. The phasey vocal thing is still there, like with the last mix. I think the high end of the guitars kind of got neutered, and it might just be a byproduct of it being monoed out. But I felt like, again, if there are any guitars that come through Nail the Mix that you shouldn't touch, might be these ones, because they're like clear as a bell, and there's really like, you could sweep around these guitar tracks with an EQ and you will not find any like white noisy sounding parts of the frequency. So yeah, I mean, touch it up and beef it up with some parallel stuff if you want to, but I wouldn't try notching too much out of this guitar signal or anything.
These tracks are presented on a silver platter, basically. Just another example. I can hear weird creaks in the bass guitar, like weird finger creaks that I shouldn't be hearing. Like, I can hear this rumble under the acoustics from just, like, it sounds like the wood vibrating. I feel like I can hear his fingers moving in the air on the finger picking stuff. Like, it's so compressed that I feel like I'm hearing the air move. Like,
so maybe
chill.
Back off the L1 a little bit.
Just like chill, like for real. Like these tracks are engineered and performed so well with so much care. It's art that you don't need to do that stuff. Just balance it.
I mean, even just look, a lot of this stuff you can determine without even listening to it when you pull the stuff into the session. It's like, look at the transient consistency of the kick track. It's like every single hit, you could tell it's already gone through some kind of compression, or at least it's been pushed through something, because every transient is basically even with the next one, which makes it really easy to trigger. But it also tells you that they've already done whatever dynamics processing that they thought was necessary. Similarly, yeah, I mean, look at the EQ curves of some of these things. They're a little more mix ready than you would probably get if you just stuck a mic on a drum. So just take that into consideration.
Yeah, and I understand that they took a very long time on this and were extremely perfectionistic about it and wanted it to sound exactly the way they wanted it to sound during the production process. So there you have it.
There you have it.
Our final mix, this one's from Marcus Stone. And okay, so have you ever been in a room with a drum set, and the drummer is hitting the snare, and it literally hurts your eyeballs? Like,
Yes, I definitely had that experience.
That's what this sounds like to me. Like that snare is so loud that like it makes my eye. It's like it makes me squint.
Yeah,
So-
I thought it was interesting. Like the whole taking, it's like, let's do an Opeth mix, but with a super like Taylor Larson snare or something like that. If that was kind of the intention, it's like, that's an interesting idea. And congrats on making the snare sound super fat, but where's the ambience of the kit? And like, it doesn't need to be that far out in front of everything else. I mean, you throw this into mono, and I bet the kick snare is just gonna dominate everything compared to. Yeah, it's like that. The transients of the kick and snare do not need to be that loud. Even if you're Taylor Larson, that it's going to be balanced with the rest of the kit. And
I was about to say, I think it's a disservice to Taylor. He does have loud drum mixes, but they're never wrong.
And they've got plenty of ambience too.
Yeah,
and that's really missing here. Is if you just flip back and forth, put it back in stereo, but flipping back and forth, just listen to like the ambience of the drums. Like I can still hear your hi-hats fine, but they're way up in like the 20K region now instead of being like kind of mid balanced and just roomy. So yeah, I think it's more of a direct mic heavy mix, and I don't particularly like it for this. I think if you took those direct mics as they were processed here and pulled them back in the mix and just balanced them with the rest of the drum kit, I think it would be a big improvement.
Yeah, but then you'd have to fix whatever weird compression shit's going on, because there's pumping all over the place. And once again, and I hear this on these 3 mixes and also a bunch of other ones I listen to, the soft parts sound like the snare and kick show. Basically, it's like snare and kick with other ethereal elements. And then suddenly it kicks back into the heavy parts, and the kicks are just gone. Like, why? That's not how it's supposed to be. It's not. So
Yeah.
the balances are very wrong. But I can hear ghost notes, though. I can hear the ghost notes.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is
10 points right there.
Yeah, separating kind of like the process of getting your snare ready from the actual mix of it. It's like you definitely want to make sure that you're preserving those ghost notes if you're gonna gate the snare. And I would doubt that Jens did much gating at all on this snare. But if you're gonna gate it, you definitely need to make sure that you get all the ghost notes. And it sounds like he did. Like if we go to what's the part? Like this part. It's like I can hear all the snare notes, and it sounds like it's not getting gated out, unlike some of the other mixes that we were listening to. So good job on that. But yeah, you gotta, after you do that, you gotta do some automation and balance it, because those ghost notes are.
But that feel is wrong, though. Like it sounds like the Incredible Hulk is trying to play this smooth, like this smooth, sexy part, and it's just like not. It's not right.
Yeah, it's like get the gate right as one thing, and then maybe process that part of this, process the snare differently for that part. Like don't scoop it out so much, or don't compress it so much, or bring out some of the mid range ring.
I'm thinking of Tommy Lee doing the drum solo from Motley Crue, like upside down with like fireworks going off and shit, like, and him wearing like the roller coaster seat, doing backflips during this part, like
while Mike plays an acoustic guitar.
It doesn't go together. So okay, I have a question for you in terms of some frequency analyzer stuff. So I'm hearing the notes that the bass is playing, but I feel like the low end from the bass is kind of missing, and it's not providing the glue between the kicks and the guitars, making the kick sound very disconnected. What are you hearing in the low end between the two mixes, and specifically in relation to the bass guitar.
Yeah, let's check that out. I was feeling like kind of above that, I was definitely noticing a build up in kind of the low mids of the guitars, or like the 400, 500 area. Like that kind of stuff. But as far as the actual low end, let's check it out. Yeah, it seems like the low end of the kick is really driving the whole sub here. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can immediately hear the balance difference between. So here's Marcus's mix, and here's the original, and you just immediately hear how in the original the kick goes down and the bass goes up in volume. So Marcus, original. And the other thing is, again, just looking at that frequency analyzer, you could see that the low end just stays more constant, whereas you could see Marcus's the sub down right around like 35 hertz and below is just kind of dancing around in time with the kick drum. So that's really a sign that you may want to just high pass some of that and really just work on the balance between the bass and the kick drum and how they interact, whether you're side chaining it or just kind of really carefully balancing things or automating it. But yeah, I mean, especially for something with this much double kick, I would say you need to be automating a high pass on there for the double kick parts, or use something like, I remember Taylor Larson was using some sort of tape saturation to kind of automatically bring down those parts. But whatever you do, you gotta take the performance into account and
Get the job done.
Yeah, exactly.
As Andy Sneap would say, just get the job done. So, cool. I mean, that's all that I had to say about these songs. You got anything else?
The only other thing I was going to say about this one was more in the high end. Let's take a look at that real quick. I think it's the guitars up in this like 3K, 3.5K. May want to look at notching that a little bit, but yeah, just flipping back and forth. The guitars sound a little bit crispy up in that 3K area. And then the other thing is I'm hearing, like, I think I mentioned this before, but every time the hi-hat gets hit, there's like a 20K spike. So watch out for that. That's pretty common, depending on...
Be nice to your dog.
Yeah, exactly. Watch that Bullet for My Valentine Nail the Mix or the Polyphia Nail the Mix if you want kind of a masterclass in getting rid of the crap in your cymbals, because that's really the goal here is retain all the shimmery magic and get rid of the white noise, and it'll make your pets much happier.
Absolutely, and that's, after all, what we're doing this for.
That's why we're here.
So, all right. Well, thank you for co-hosting.
Thank you for having me.
This has been my pleasure. This has been another episode of Mixcritmonday on the URM podcast. See you later.
See you guys.
To get in touch with the URM podcast, visit urm.com/podcast and subscribe today.